But now we've come to our final session. And this final session is designed to kind of take all the information we've learned in the last 2 days and remind us why we need to know it. And so that's why this is called the client experience. And if you notice, on stage, I'm joined by real clients. Who knew? You guys didn't know this would happen. But either way, let me introduce you to our esteemed group of volunteers I was quickly reminded earlier. So first, to my right, this is Hillary Millman, owner of In Better Words Marketing and Executive Director of Association of Development Officers. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
At least it's still a pleasure.
We'll so far, so good.
43
Check back in
minutes later,
yep.
I'll let you know. And to Hillary's right, I'd like to welcome Kevin Johnson, who is a hospitality professional and experienced hotel general manager, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Yep. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you, and welcome. Thank you for having me.
And our third panelist today is also someone that many of you know, Rose Kappa, who also has 2 roles, VP of Institutional Advancement at Warburg and President of the Event Department. Welcome, Rose.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Can we get at least a little bit of a round of applause?
That's impressive.
That's what we're looking for. I mean, otherwise they're not going to come back. I mean, they're volunteers.
We're not coming back. Oh. You put tape on my face. I'm not coming back.
Should have put the tape. Well, anyway. So again, today's session is called the client experience for a reason, right? Because we talk about the actual experience all the time. That it's not just about equipment. It's not just about pressing, blinking buttons. I don't know if blinking is bad, but either way, it's not about that. It really is the fact to highlight that we're in the service business. We're in the hospitality business. They're not really our events. They're really their events. And they've asked us to help and to support them. And so that's our job. And so I'd like to do this session last to remind everybody that really they're the ones who are the most important in this equation. And so I thought it would be great to get some feedback, no pun intended. I know some of us don't like that comment. But to get some actual words of wisdom from our clients to better find out what they want to see from us when we're out in the field working on their events. So if you guys are ready, I thought we'd start off with a couple easy ones.
All right.
Yours are getting harder as we go. I just got to tell you. But Hillary, why don't you tell us about your role first at ADO, Association of Development Officers, and what types of events you typically work on?
So ADO is a membership organization for nonprofits, primarily for fundraisers and the people who support them. I am the part-time executive director of that organization, and our primary function is education. So we host, for 8 months a year, we have monthly interactive seminars with about 50 people. And then we also have a big annual fundraiser that we host.
Interesting. So you do education and fundraising.
Yes. So we do educational events for smaller groups, and those kind of vary in their layout. And then we do the one big fund. It's a fundraiser, but also an award ceremony, and designed to promote the importance of philanthropy. So we have a number of different missions with that big event.
Okay. And it's member-based, which is also really important.
Yes, and our membership in our organization is almost 100% about the events. The only reason people join is to come to those events. So if they are not great, we cease to exist. So yeah. That's it. It all rides on the events.
All right, now we're talking. See, we just got a little more valuable. That's good. That's all right. Excellent. Thank you. Now, Kevin and I have worked together for many years, and in some different capacities too. But could you give us a sense of your role in events as a general manager of a hotel?
Well, as a general manager of a hotel, when it comes to an event, For me here, it's slightly different from Hillary because I might be your client, but then there's probably two layers of clients that's sitting behind me that we all have to please. So sometimes it becomes a little bit challenging because we have to interpret what they're actually looking for, because 9 times out of 10, they have no clue what it is that they want. And even when they do know what they want, they still don't know what they want because on the day of, everything changes. But as the general manager or somebody that's overseeing a hotel that is hosting these various events, you have to be able to understand the client's needs and anticipate the client need. Because somebody can walk in and say, okay, yeah, we're going to have a meeting for 20 persons and we just need microphones and that's it. But then as you have that conversation, you realize, oh, well, somebody has a presentation. So you know what? Let me tell Joe that when he's coming, make sure you bring the projector and screen because chances are the client is going to need that. So it's about anticipating the need of the client so that the client event at the end of the day can be the best event ever.
And I would imagine that being the venue, that everybody thinks you have the answer to everything. So
No, we don't. And that is true. At the venue level, persons really believe that we have all the answers. And there are many times that we are faced with questions that, well, no, you have to talk to the expert. We just have the venue. We're the location. We're the 4 walls. We're the brick and mortar. But if you want to know more of the technical side, you need to call up the AV company, or you need to call up the tech company, whichever it is, or the staging company, whatever it is that they're doing, you need to talk to them. But we're talking to you. You can just give us the answer. So we have to become the expert, and that's why we like to partner with companies like Corporate AV so that we could become the expert to facilitate the needs of the client.
yeah, I mean, I've seen you field a lot of different questions that you probably had nothing to do with. But
Yep.
don't worry, because we get it too.
Yeah.
I know if I'm wearing a headset and I have a sheet of paper in my hand, I am usually asked about the kosher meal, the vegan meal. It's
Yep.
too cold / too hot in here, and what are you going to do about it?
That's right.
So it's
But-
okay. We all get those
Yes,
questions.
you've become our banquet manager on many occasions.
Well, I think it reinforces the fact that we all end up working on the same team,
Yeah.
which is really, Rose and I have done a lot of events together.
Yeah.
And that is the feeling that I've always had, is that we're always on the same team. Now, Rose, you've owned an events management company for
Right.
the whole time I've known you.
20 years, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, how does that factor in? Like when you're first planning an event, do the clients really know what they want?
A lot of times we're telling them what they want, but what I've found over the years is they ask for the impossible. And we always actually end up giving it to them. So they end up thinking that we have this magic wand that we can make anything happen at all. And thankfully, most of the time you guys can too. What I have found is most of the people I work with are volunteers who are on a committee for a nonprofit. So they kind of know what they want. They know what they don't like when they see it. So it's a lot of translation, like you were saying. But also, they're looking to us for the imagination and the possibilities.
Yes.
We live in a county that has gotten kind of jaded. They go to a lot of the same events. And so anytime we can take it to the next level and make things a little different, they like to see that. So even though I know you all roll your eyes when you see me coming, we do really good events together because we
Yes.
push the envelope and we
Yes.
try new things.
Yes.
Well, that creativity's got to be pretty important, I would imagine, to all of your clients.
Yeah. No, I think that they, essentially a lot of the nonprofits, they want to raise money, right? So the storytelling is very important, and the audiovisual is a critical component of that. If they can't hear the story, if they don't understand the story, if there's a glitch and they're not satisfied with how things are looking, if they're uncomfortable, that all plays against whether or not we've been able to do our job. And then it could play against whether or not the event is successful. So your role in the evening is so critical because together we are telling a story that gets them their resource that they need.
Yeah.
So education, fundraising, still telling a story, it sounds like, in
Yes.
just different capacity.
Yeah.
And The hotel just has to figure it all out and get whatever
right.
they need, right? Well, just a little follow-up, Rose. What about in your role at Warburg? How is that different?
At that role, I'm trying to get whatever I can get for the least amount of money possible. Because the budget's always a concern. What's nice at Warburg is I know I have a set of number of events, and I have the freedom to be creative and do different things. We've done together hybrid events that have been different than anything we've ever done. We all have had to stretch during COVID and change things, but how wonderful that now we can do these things. Like, wouldn't it have been great 5-10 years ago to be able to do this? Imagine the possibilities of where we would be right now if we had been forced earlier to find that avenue.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it yesterday. Yesterday we did an event where we had 2 people live here. We had one remote in Queens, another remote in Orlando. We were all talking together. We were streaming it to 5 different places. And I was actually controlling some of the graphics from the stage. And we were laughing, saying, who knew that we could do this?
That's right.
Just
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. So, there's always a silver lining. And I think the pandemic has taught us a few things. And
Yes.
we've learned how to be a little more resourceful. But,
Yeah.
but either way. So, all right, Kevin, I'm coming your way now because I'm trying to save the hardest question for Hillary.
Don't worry, he's going to pay for that at the end of the day.
Oh, don't worry. I know.
For the next 5 years, whatever.
Yeah, there's a long memory. But listen, based on your experience, what do you think makes an event successful?
Well, it's a loaded question because there's a lot of things that goes into making an event special. But just going back to a statement that Rose made earlier about the client looking for the impossible, which we all know is true, and then we deliver the impossible. Years ago, when I was back in the Bahamas, I used to train customer service, and one of the things that I used to always talk about to the students is about exceeding the guest expectations, going the extra mile. The problem with that scenario is once you exceed that expectation, that becomes the norm. They expect that. And then you have to look for something else to add on top of that to make it special. And when we partner together between, an event management company, an AV company, a venue, we partner together to really pull off the impossible. Because you have different entities working together, and at the end of the day, the one common goal is to give that client the best event, the best experience possible. So when you look at what goes into making an event special, it's all part of that, every component in that equation coming together, cohesive, working together for that one common goal. And I think once we understand that we're all working for the same common goal, then it makes everything a lot easier, and it really produces a successful event. And we've done a lot of great successful events where the client left with, and that's the kind of reactions we look for.
No, I think that's true. I mean, we're always looking for that, for a response.
Exactly.
There used to be a time where we would interview people, especially on the technical side, and say, well, how do you know if you did a good job? Well, if nobody complained. I'm like,
That's right.
That's not our person. We're
Yeah.
looking for a little bit more than
A little bit more. Yeah, exactly.
We don't want the bare minimum.
That's right.
We want to actually know that someone appreciated something.
Yeah.
But Hillary, what are your thoughts? What do you think makes an event successful?
So I do a lot of different kinds of events in my various roles, but for my regular educational monthly events, I'm looking for something like AV not to become a barrier. So my people are there to learn something from an expert or a group of experts, and to be able to talk to each other and achieve a very specific goal. And I want to make sure that there's no barrier to that. So it's not, I can't see, I can't hear. They want to come in at 100%. They came out of work, they're really busy, they took the time in the middle of the day at lunch to come to this event, they paid money to be there, and my members are really, feel really strongly about getting value for that 2 hours of time that we've asked for them. And they want, so I know, like, from my speaker, that I bring in, they want very specific action items and takeaways that they can go back to their office to do, I learned something, I'm going to do my job better. So I need to make sure that AV does not, any AV issues don't take away from that, and in fact enable them to have the experience that they paid for. So, I please do not tell the person who is very generous with our food and beverage and space about this.
They might be watching.
I don't
Never
want
mind.
to, don't tell any venue person, but for me, it's really all about AV, because if I didn't, I have
you
to
and
give
good
them
night.
coffee. Yeah, I have to give them coffee, because without caffeine,
They can't,
it's
yeah.
bad. But other than that, as long as the speaker's good and they can see that person and hear that person, that's it for me. Now, it's not the same. There are events I do where we need that wow factor, where there's a really emotional story being told, and
Right.
we need, the video and the sound and the timing and all of that. And I need you to record it, and I need you to record the audience reaction, and I'm really annoying. I want you to be in 20 places at once and for a low, low price of nothing. So I do have those events too. But there are times where my focus is, let's just eliminate any barriers to my people getting what they need out of this event.
Just to add to that, and I'm happy you talk about the barriers, and I think when you look at an AV company, I know you live in the technical side of that world every day, but at the end of the day, the purpose of having AV present in an event is to enhance that event. If you think of it from that perspective, from the human side of it, enhancing that event so that the barriers are eliminated, so that persons on the other end can hear. When you take away this microphone that I'm speaking to right now, in this small room, you can still hear me. But with this microphone, it's less effort. I don't have to speak as loud. I can save my voice for a few more minutes. When you start looking at the human side of what you actually do, you realize the value that you bring to making that event successful. So, like Hillary said, removing those barriers. And sometimes I know a lot of times you have an event, and being in the technical side from time to time, the last thing you want, somebody's coming up to you and telling you that there's a problem with the microphone or a problem with the camera, because as far as you're concerned, it's all working. And a lot of times we find that some of these barriers become the users' side of it. So, one of the things that is good to do at the beginning of these events, when you set up the event, is walk the users through exactly how to properly use a microphone, or how to use the projector, or how to use the computer, because sometimes we believe they know, but they really don't. But once you start taking the human side of it and adding it to the technical side of it, it makes for a beautiful experience.
Very well said. I think that, it's like form. It's function versus a little bit of, form. And I think that's the different types of events.
And it's interesting because we kind of all went too successful thinking about our own clients. But, we're your client, and then we have our own clients.
That's right.
So there's also success in terms of, if I'm happy when you helped make me feel less stressed out, or I don't have to worry, because there are so many pieces that I have to, so many things that I wrote, all of us have to worry about when we're putting on an event. So when I walk in and I know, and you guys have been there hours before me, and I know everything's going to be perfect, and I don't have to worry, and you're going to tape the sign to the podium for me because I never remember the tape. All of those, it's like a combination of the really big things, like being able to see and hear, and then those small touches. But success is not only, my people being happy at the end of the day, but how much stress did I go through to make sure that my audience is happy? Did you make it easy for me? As years ago when I was working for a nonprofit and planning events, I was always going to lobby for the venue whose staff were going to make it easier for me, even if it were more expensive, because I knew I had so many things to worry about. So if I know that corporate AV is going to just take care of all those little details and I don't have to worry, I'm always going to ask for corporate AV, and I'm always going to recommend corporate AV, because we all want our lives made easier.
Exactly.
I'd like to add one thing to that. It's always nice to work with vendors who play nice with other vendors, because we've done events, if you recall back in the days when we transferred transformed a bus depot or an airplane hangar
Yeah, that was
into
a
an
little
event.
challenging. It was a little hard.
Yeah. There were some times where, there were other vendors who thought who they were, whether it was the decorator or whatever, and they didn't always like to play nice together. So it's always good to be able to work with a team that finds solutions instead of always, sticking up pridefully for what they think is right. And I found that over the years that's the kind of team that you guys have brought to the table, which is always great. We could have as many as 10 vendors involved in one event that we're doing. And so there's a lot of balls up in the air. And so I like to choose vendors that I know it's almost like a push it, set and forget it. I don't need to hear or know what's going on because you guys are going to fix it and it's going to be great. And not everybody works that well. So that helps us to be better general contractors, so to speak, and make sure that the building is built right.
Yes.
Yep.
That's a great way to put it.
It is interesting. You guys all have other clients. That's the reality.
That's right.
So you're in the middle. And
Yeah.
like we like to think that we're like the end. Everything falls down on our head at the end. But, the reality is you're in the middle.
Yeah.
And so you may have a very, we'll call it less reasonable request, but it's probably not coming from you.
Right.
It's probably coming from someone else. And so everybody's got to work together to come up with a solution. It may not always be the exact thing. There may be a better choice sometimes. I know usually for us the big restriction is time. More than anything else. Money too. But time is usually because you've already agreed to something by then, so time becomes a restriction. And a lot of times we have to kind of try to help people from making bad decisions too late in the game. Because you already know that that's going to take too much time. And it's going to cause a bigger problem somewhere down the road. But that's part of our job, is to try to pass that information along and provide a solution, like you guys were saying. So that's really good. Rose, you've dealt with other people, other companies that do similar work. How did you go about choosing, a company to do that? How did you first get started like that?
A lot of it was word of mouth. It was referrals. So if somebody else that I knew was using somebody, they would say, "Oh, you should call Joe or call, Mario or call whatever." And sometimes we have to fit the vendor to the client that we have. So Joe knows there's not every event I have, I can't always use corporate AV because they don't have the budget for it. They might be a little bit smaller and they're not looking for something as elaborate. I know when I call Joe, I'm getting like platinum treatment. Everything is going to be done perfectly well. We get the best equipment. Nothing is sketchy. No one's going to be worried that the cable's too long and then the video's not going to come out as clear as it should or whatever. Like, we know it's all going to be good. But there are some people that I work with that just can't afford platinum. So sometimes we got to go to, gold or bronze. So it really is trying to fit the right people together to still get a good experience wherever we can.
So in that case, because it makes sense, right? We all, depending on what the product is or what the service is we're looking for, we know, all right, today I'm going to do this level, but I don't need that level tomorrow, Do you have to, I guess, adjust your expectations as you're doing that?
Yes and no. I think that there's a huge value in communications. So if I'm not telling you what I want, I'm not going to get it. And we've always tried to do pre-meetings and run of shows and things like that so that everyone's on the same page. You know when the transitions are, you know what we're doing. And I feel like even an organization that maybe isn't used to giving the same kind of platinum rises to the occasion because you've given them the tools to do so. So, in a way, we've had times where we've had everything, and then there's something we can't control, and we get a glitch. Like, we've all been there, right? Like, the thing doesn't play right, the Wi-Fi breaks down, something happens. There's certain things we can control and certain things we can't. But, I think that after doing this for 30 years, you learn how to ask for what you want, and you can kind of squeeze it out of a stone if you have to, because that's what you have to work with.
Yeah.
So you mentioned communication. How can we better communicate with you? And I'm going to go to the communications expert first. Otherwise, she'll yell at me later, and I'm a little bit afraid. All right? But how can we better communicate what we need to you guys, or maybe when things might be a challenge?
So do you mean on site or in the planning of an event?
Well, I guess we should start at the beginning. Maybe in the planning first, but on site, I think, is where most of our team is actually going to interact with you.
I guess just, I like to think I'm not one of those clients who has no clue what I want or need, but there are definitely some times where I really know, and other times where I'm being asked to do something new, so I don't know exactly what I'm asking for. So I think the best thing is to be asked questions that help me figure out, if I don't know what I need, because sometimes that will tell me that I don't know what my client is expecting necessarily. So if you ask me a good question, I can ask that question back, or I can figure it out. It could be as simple as, do you want to record it? And I might say, no, I'm not going to record it. And I'm like, well, if I record it, maybe I could sell the recording, or I could put it behind a wall on the website, and it's a member-only benefit, or if it's for a client and we record the event, maybe they have new board members who will come on the next year and have never been to the gala. Now they can see the gala for themselves and know what to anticipate. So sometimes, if you're asking me good questions, they're good for me, and they're good for me to go back to, clients or customers with. So that's it. And then, on site, you guys have always been great. Like, as soon as I walk in, corporate AV guys are always the first ones that I talk to, check in, and I always get everything's fine, we're all ready, or this is what we need. So just that immediate kind of confirmation when I walk in the door that you have what you need, or you don't have what you need, or just a little quick conversation to say, okay, your speaker will be here in 15 minutes and they're bringing their own laptop, do they need this? And what I love is I'll say, yes, they have their laptop. And you're like, all right, well, we have 4 extras. We have 12 different wires. And, and if they don't show up, we know how to juggle.
Right.
So that's the feeling that I get when corporate AV is there. And that's the feeling I want, that I don't have, like I said, I don't want to worry about. This is not my area of expertise beyond knowing what I need, what the end result needs to be. And I'm so grateful that I just don't have to think about it.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Kevin, as far as how we can better communicate with the venue and with the property before we're coming in, and then when we arrive, how do you think we could be better at that skill?
Well, I think Hillary said it best for all aspect of it. It's about anticipating what the client actually wants. But from the actual venue itself for setup and breakdown is, and I think corporate AV does this very well. So this is not something to say to add to what you already do. You're already doing it. Is, have a clear communication as to what time you guys are arriving, what equipments they're bringing in, what time they need to get into the space to load, what's the setup time. And usually this stuff is usually planned out in advance, and sometimes we squeeze you that you don't have enough time to set up, but you make it work anyway. And we know we've had many of those days. And then, for a venue, the most important thing is that breakdown after the event. Mm-hmm. Because we need to turn that room back over for something else. And we've had a lot of vendors come in, we have to wait 24 hours before they could come in to break down. We don't have that problem with corporate AV. When they say it's done, or amen as in church, as they saying that amen, wires already start unplugging. Half the equipment is already in the case with corporate. And we love that. Because why? I can then get my guys in there and we can get that room clean and ready for that next event. And there are many of times we have events and we have set up with other companies and we end up losing an entire day that we could not sell because we have to wait for a breakdown. And I've seen you guys break down elaborate stage and lighting in a matter of an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'm like, how the heck did they do that? Wherein I have a company would come in with half the equipment and they need 6 hours to break down. Mm-hmm. Because, maybe the guy is in the corner having a coffee or having a drink. So that's the sort of stuff. It's not so much as just the communication, but it's the whole activity, the whole involvement of the before and after, because that's where it shines most and that's where it helps the venue most. The shorter that time frame can be for setup and the shorter that time frame can be for breakdown, for a venue, it's gold.
There you go.
It's just made me realize that one of the things you do is shield me from having to have these interactions with the venue. So it's my event, but when I contact, corporate AV and say, can I do this? Do they have, I get, well, we know the venue or we'll connect with the venue, so you don't have to worry about any of that. This is my favorite phrase, if you haven't figured it out. Hillary, you don't have to do it yourself is the best thing you can say to me. So that's something that I didn't realize you were doing until, really realized until just now. I don't have to talk to you about this.
That's right.
And I don't have to be mad at you, you're not mad at me, you guys can be mad at each other. So from as the outsider point of view, that's a great less communication.
That's
great.
right.
Yeah.
See, I think Rose actually knows all this stuff.
Yeah, because she's been on the other side too.
Well, I think that the important thing to know, and I'm guilty of this too, we make assumptions. We think people can speak our language, and we don't always expect people to, be a little confused about some of the technology. When I was a baby fundraiser, if you told me something about lumens or project, I would nod my head and pretend I knew what you were talking about, but I had no idea. And one of the things that I like about working with vendors like you is that, and either if it was you, Joe, or one of your salespeople, you ask me questions, where are you putting this projector? Is it going to be close to the screen? Are we going to be far away? It's going to change the kind of lens we have to use. It's going to change.
Right.
To me, it's a you plug it in, you turn it on, the light comes on, and there's a movie.
That's it.
I don't really know that there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
So having somebody kind of educate us about some of that is very important, because then I can take that back and look very important because I know what it is. But it also helps to get that better product at the end.
Yeah.
But it was nice that at the beginning, now I make guesses. I'm yeah, you can have that already by 4:30, right? Rose, we're not getting in there till 2, and I'm yeah, but it's only.
You love that, right?
So I can make assumptions on how long it's going to take, but if it's going to take longer, Joe will be yeah, Rose, you know what? This is a pretty big deal. We need an extra hour or two. Those are things that we've gotten into a rhythm that we kind of know what we need. But when I was, like I said, a baby fundraiser, what did I know from lumens, Yeah.
Well, it took me quite a while, too. I'm still learning things right now. So we learned a lot from this training, to be honest. But the communication is the crux of what we do.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that sometimes. That's really the service. We're here to help them communicate to their audience, and so that's, these are our tools to do that, so to speak. And, we need to be highly skilled in using them, which is what we focused on until right now, really.
Right.
But everything you guys are saying, says, hey, ask us some questions, help guide us a little bit. Just tell us what you need, and we'll tell you to get out of the room really quick, I think is what I heard. But no, that's what we all need to hear.
Yeah.
Because it's not just pushing buttons.
No, it's not.
It's about the clients. It's about your clients,
Yeah.
and you guys are our clients, so it all works together. Let's see, what can I give Hillary that's really, really different? I don't know. Kevin, I did have one for you, because you have a little bit of a unique perspective in this regards. You've actually been at a property where you've done your own AV.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a third-party company in your building, and then you have to deal with people like us driving trucks and asking where we can park them, and outside companies.
Yeah.
That's kind of like 3 different worlds, I would imagine.
It's completely different.
How are they different? When it's putting a projector in a room, or it's putting sound out in the microphone?
So when it comes to our in-house AV company, they're familiar with the property. They know where everything is. They know what to do. They walk in, they put in the projector, done. But when it comes to an off-site AV company, not corporate AV, let's start with there, it becomes a big challenge. Because 9 times out of 10, they don't know what they need to bring. They don't know what's at the property location. And a lot of times they come in and they expect you to do the work for them as well. And we've been down that road with a lot of other AV vendors, where they would send the equipment over and they would send two guys, and they have 2 hours to set up, and the client is standing there watching like, so now I have to call my guys, okay, you need to help do this. But when you're dealing with a company like Corporate AV, and I'm not saying this just because I'm sitting here, I'm saying this because this is the truth. Corporate AV is already ahead of the game because they already anticipated what the client needs just by having that conversation and knowing the questions to ask the client. I'm sure Hillary and Rose can attest to this because they've dealt with Joe on many occasions. The right questions is asked so that the right tools is there for the job. And I think that's where dealing with a company like Corporate AV and having an in-house company comes together a very similar, because with my in-house AV company, it's the same scenario. They know what questions to ask the client, so they know how to anticipate the client need. For instance, we have clients all the time. They would come in, we just need a screen. Okay, what are you going to be using the screen for? Yeah, we're going to have pictures on it. Do you have a projector? We're going to bring our own projectors. Okay, do you have a computer? Oh, no, I thought we could. No, you need a computer to go with that projector to put it. You can't just use the projector and the screen. So it's that sort of stuff, anticipating what the client's trying to do or understand what they're trying to speak their language so that we could then interpret that to the AV company. But, one thing that we love with Corporate AV is that when we have those clients, we don't get in the middle. We give them Joe's number. We say, call Joe. And Joe will tell you what he can do and what he can't do, and he'll figure out what it is that you need. And so it brings an ease to the operation, and it brings an ease to actually hosting the events, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what the venue do. We actually host the event. So having a company like Corporate AV and having in-house are very similar in that regard. Having a third-party vendor that's from around the corner somewhere who has no clue, it's a nightmare.
Interesting. Well, because sometimes we're that new company coming into a new space, and so, part of what we've tried to do over the years is ask all these questions.
Exactly.
Because we learned in the beginning that it's going to be a better experience for us as well if we know the answers. Yes. Because then we'll know how much time we're going to have. We'll know when we have to get out. Do we need more people to do that? Because a lot of times, not youth too in particular, but sometimes clients don't give us that information.
Oh.
And so sometimes there's a little
Or you didn't
negotiating.
ask.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else, not me, didn't ask. How's that? Is that good?
But
But it's very important.
Yeah.
All the communication is just the key.
It is key, and at the end of the day, you might be the new company going into a venue, or the new company for a client. But let's face reality. How many AV companies we know there are doing something like this right now?
Audience, do we know the answer to that?
Exactly.
I don't know.
That's what sets Corporate AV apart from everybody else. You're going through the process of educating your staff to get them to understand what it is that the client is looking for, what the venue is looking for, and how that all come together to pull off one single event. At the end of the day, for that event to happen, it took multiple entities for one event. And sometimes it's probably 2 entities if it's a small event, but then sometimes it's probably 5, 6, 7, 8 entities to pull off that one event. This right here is where it starts, Joe. So just doing this in this form actually puts you light years ahead of all of the other AV companies, because it's preparing your guys so that they know what it is that they have to do when they walk into a venue, whether it's the first time there or whether they've been there 50 times.
Well, that's a good point.
And this made me think of something again. So I go to venues where they have in-house AV, and a tenth of the way through that sentence where they're telling me that, I'm like, no, I have to have Joe. And there's like a lot of psychology behind that. So when I first started working with Corporate AV, I was working at the Business Council of Westchester and had responsibility for a tremendous trade show. And I was in over my head, certainly for the first few years, but that's when we started working together. And I just developed a comfort level, again, knowing that everything would be done correctly and well, that problem, potential problems would be anticipated. I would walk in, again, I would be, there really early. You guys would be their first friendly face, skilled, talented, friendly face.
Wow, that's a lot.
Not you, them.
All right.
Oh, no. You'd roll in like 10 minutes before it started and do nothing.
That sounds about right.
No. Let's not get confused. So I developed a comfort with my level of comfort knowing things would be done professionally and be done well. So as I left there, I started my own business and worked with clients that I helped with their event for 10 years. And my answer was always, I can tell you that if you don't want to worry like I didn't have to, this is who you should go with. So you guys have that, I interact with Joe in the beginning, in the planning, the money, the commitment, but then it's you on site who are bringing me that peace of mind and that comfort. Right. So that few minutes that we're chatting or, we're going over the details, again, that kind of stuff is so important because that's what I'm going to remember when I am deciding whether to refer you to a client and when I want to bring you back in for my next event. So that's just, it's so important.
Excellent. That is good news. We've got just a few minutes. I just want to do a kind of final words. Rose, suggestions for our technical team that could help them in delivering a good experience for you and your clients?
That's tough. I think that the thing I suggest is just to be patient, because sometimes when I come to you with a change in a screen, a slide, it's because I misspelled the CEO's name and I don't want to get in trouble. So I need your help to make sure those things, get fixed so we don't all look bad. So just be very patient and, count to 10 if you have to. If I sound like an idiot, just be like, okay, let's start from the beginning and let's see what we can do to make it work. But definitely patience is key.
Excellent advice. Kevin, final thoughts?
I think Rose said it best there, and patience is probably the most important thing, and that's for all of us, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with a client, and a lot of times we just don't know what the client wants, and a lot of times we believe we know what they want, and they walk into the room, and their need is something completely different. So there is a lot of last-minute changes, but having the flexibility and the patience and being able to on the spot, just on the fly, just make changes, get stuff going, fix this, fix that. It makes it just that much better. And a lot of times, when you do it, you make sure you do it so that the client is not even aware that there was a problem. It goes back to what Hillary was saying, is making sure that there's no barrier. So while there's 1,000 barriers sitting behind the drape, the client should not be aware that those barriers exist. Yeah. At the end of the day, our job as a venue and your job as an AV company is to make sure that those barriers are removed from the client's view. And I think once we can do that effectively, nothing would stop us.
Excellent point. And now, Madam Executive Director, your final words.
I guess I would echo what both of you said, but to say something different is, I guess, the way you think about yourself. So I am an AV professional, I am this, but what are you to us? You're, a problem solver, hopefully a problem preventer, maybe a stress ball, that's where the patience comes in. You are sometimes the last barrier between us and a really upset board member or CEO, or the difference between raising $10,000 and $100,000. So you're what you are to you, but you're a whole lot more than that to us at that time. And we really rely on you. So like was said, if we are freaking out or we're not as patient as maybe we could be also on the other end of that, is just keep that in mind. Like so much is riding on that. We all try to behave our best all the time, but a lot depends on what you're doing. And we're grateful even when it's hard to notice. So this is my like overall expression of gratitude for the past and upcoming year. I feel like I'm covered.
Right.
Just putting it in now. This
Yeah. So like this is recorded, so just play back my thank you.
And I guess to simplify that is that just for this event right now, there's a lot of equipment involved. But if this was being done for a client, the client doesn't care about the equipment that is involved. All they care about is what the end product looks like, sound like. So at the end of the day, once you keep that in your mind, that is that end product that matters to the client, it's gold.
These are excellent points of advice. Do you guys mind taking a couple of questions?
Yes.
Are they better than yours?
I can't
Shots
say
fired.
really. Maybe
Now
not.
I'm just kissing up to the audience.
All right. We have a question in front. Please.
Hey, yeah, this would be a question for all you guys. What are things, because most of us are techs here, you'll see us in the field. What are things you don't like from techs? Or, service people in general, but what are things you wouldn't appreciate?
Oh boy, here it comes.
All right. So for a venue, I think one of the things that is a pet peeve of mine, and corporate AV is not guilty of this, is that once the setup is done, get rid of all the junk. Because at the end of the day, that room is for the client's experience. The junk should not be there. If you have to take a break to eat, do it away from the client. Having a bottle of water with you is fine, but I'm sure in the AV world, that's the last thing you want to have next to equipment is a bottle of water. But is always remember that that room or that venue, that setup is for the client's experience. You're there to ensure that experience is at the highest level. And when you can remember to do those things, it actually really makes for a better experience. Because the last thing you want the clients to walk in and they see cases stacked up in the corner, bags, this place, a roll of tape here. And these, I'm calling these things off because these things has happened for other clients with other companies. But that's the sort of stuff, yeah.
Just to piggyback on that, when in doubt, tape it down, because there's a lot of times that there's wires that you think are kind of out of the way, but there's going to be somebody who's going to trip and fall on it. So if there's any doubt at all, just put some tape on it.
And mine is, we all have to, so I'm the client, but my client is my client, and we all have to present kind of a professional front together. And I'm responsible for you because I brought you there. So, if you are sitting at the table or, I know it's boring. I'm bored too. But like maintaining like kind of a professional, I'm awake, I'm alert, I'm paying attention, I'm an adult, as opposed to like the opposite of that. So just, we just all want to look professional as we can. And that doesn't mean formal. My events are, like I'm hearing you say that, my events are less formal. I have invited you guys to come and sit at a table and eat something. If I have no idea whether you're doing anything because I have no idea about what you do. But if you're not busy during that time, if something's taking care of itself, I'm happy to have you come and sit and eat. But again, I'm inviting you because it's a different kind of event. But we always just want to maintain that kind of level of professionalism and just be aware of how we're behaving in our surroundings.
Very good. Good question. Good answers. Any other questions from our audience? Anything on Hopin, Alexa?
No
Well,
questions? Wow.
then, Marissa, you sure you don't have a question?
I mean, I have a comment. Can I have a comment?
Please.
Sure, go
First,
ahead.
I just want to thank you all for being here. But, I went to school for theater, and I had a directing teacher tell me something once that I'll never forget. He said, if you're up on stage with a scene partner, it's your job to make your scene partner look good, which means it's his job or her job to make me look good. So if we're both making each other look good,
That's right.
then it's going to win. You're going to both have a great role. You're both going to succeed. So just hearing you talk just makes me think less of us and them and we.
Yes,
Exactly.
perfect.
Change the language.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You said it best.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Next time you should take the chair.
I was just going to say,
the chair.
why are you here? Her. Let's get the brains up here next
That's it.
time,
I
Marissa.
mean-
Nobody else wanted the job, let's be honest.
But, I would say to that, it's one of the reasons why over the years I've enjoyed working with corporate AV because it's always about the client at the end of the day. As a matter of fact, some of our biggest events happened because Joe brought the client to us. It wasn't because we had the client and brought it to Joe. It was the other way around. So we've always worked together. And I think if more persons in this community do that, work together, we can be an unstoppable force in this community.
Well, I think we're all very lucky to have this community. I mean, it is very good. It's very tight. People work well together in general, you know, but we have to keep pushing each other and keep getting better. And that's what this is really all about.
Yeah.
So please, let's put our hands together for our esteemed guest today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Otherwise, I think we're going to be wrapping up Pirate University. So thank you all for all of your efforts. I especially like seeing everybody work really hard earlier with the work groups going on. And I don't know what the hell Seth was talking about, but it looked very good. I mean, but all in all, really great day, really great couple of 2 days. Thank you again to everybody for all of the work in building and getting food here and making sure that we're on time and on schedule. Even though that clock did hit 0 about 5 minutes ago, but we'll just ignore it, you know?
Who's the one who's still talking?
And that's why she's here. But thank you to everyone. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Once again, I'm not going to hit them all, so I'm not going to try. But everyone, we appreciate your help, and I think we're going to sign off from Pirate University. So thank you very much. Everybody have a great day. Thank you again for all you.
Thank you.
You guys were great.
Excellent.
And we're out.
All right.